Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. Thank you once again for taking some time out of your busy week to join us on our little podcast that we have going on here. Before we get into it, as always, a couple of quick favors that I need to ask. Number one, whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on, please make sure that you have subscribed and that you are sharing it around with anyone you think might get some value or some enjoyment out of the podcast and the information that I am putting out there. You can follow us on all the socials, so Instagram, TikTok. I've been a little bit slack on TikTok, kind of not feeling the platform. I struggle with social media. I've spoken about that a lot on the podcast, but TikTok, I'm putting stuff on there, seeing how we go with it. And I will persist with it, but it's just not really been a focus. But Instagram, Facebook, the Unstoppable Dad Project, we have a free Facebook group that you can find that is attached to the Facebook page, so you can add yourself into there. And we are about to hit week 8, so the last week of our free 8-week program. So within that Facebook group, you'll be able to find free instructional videos. You will be able to find free information around the program. So if you're looking to get back into it, cost is an issue, and you don't want to maybe outlay the finances to try and get into a paid program, but you're committed to doing something, I have a free 8-week program for you. You can jump in there and you can follow along with that. So this week, the topic that I wanted to cover off this week. So this week's all around a saying that I've heard quite a bit over years, really, and I'm sure anyone listening may or may not have heard it. And the saying is, what you do in the dark comes to the light. And the one thing over the last, I've been thinking about this a lot over this last week, because I've been listening to an audiobook. The audiobook is called Raise Your Game by Alan Stein Jr. This is the second book of his that I've read, and the saying came up in that book, and it's been something that's made me reflect a little bit about that saying, because I think it can be taken two ways. So number one, like the first way, and the way I've been taking it is I've really been taking it as like inspiration, right? Because from the point of view of inspiration, the way I take it and the way I perceive that saying is, the more work you do without people watching, the more chance you are going to have of success, because what you do in the dark, so what you do while no one's watching, is going to come to the light at some point. It can also be taken a second way, which is probably a little bit more like, don't be a shithead. Don't try and hide bad things from people, because eventually that stuff's going to come out. And that's the second way you can do it. But I wanted to talk about using it in the first way, and the way I perceive it right now, right? And especially in today's day and age, the social media day and age that we're in, where we are we have this feeling and this expectation that, especially from personally, from a coaching perspective, and trying to grow a coaching business and trying to grow an online business, where we need to be on show. We need to almost show everything that we're doing. And this week, I haven't really done a lot of social media. I did a post on Monday, and then I kind of went radio silence, blackout until, we did this podcast, just because I really didn't want to. I had other stuff going on, other stuff that was more important. Now, does that mean that I wasn't working? Does that mean that I wasn't doing the things that I needed to for my clients, for the people that are in there, trying to better myself and doing the things that I'm committed to doing? No, absolutely not. Like, I kept doing those things. I had to adjust different plans, I had to move things around. I kept training. I kept doing all that stuff that I needed to do in order to move the needle forward. But I just didn't put it out there. I didn't do any social media posts. I didn't put it out there. And that's where probably why I've been a little bit reflective on this particular saying, because really the work that I'm doing in the dark, will it come to light? Well, it will, because for me, that saying is more about a cumulative effect, and something that I speak about regularly with clients and on the podcast is really just about those weekly, daily wins, and stacking them up and stacking those little wins, and in turn letting them turn into the big wins. So for me, like, that saying is about, like, it's inspiring to me. It's like, I'm sure we've all heard about, those 10-year overnight success stories, those ones where people are like, it seems like they're an overnight success. They've gone from absolute obscurity into absolute success in what seems like overnight. But for the vast majority of those particular stories, when you actually hear what they've been through, it's not an overnight success, because there is 5, 10, 15, 20 years of work that they've put in the background. It just means that the one thing, or that something that they've done, has just caught fire, and that's what they've become known for. But that one thing that they've become known for has come about due to all the work that they've put in the past. So back to the saying, back to the title of the podcast, what they've done in the dark has now come into the light, and that's sparked the fire that has created that success for them, rather than thinking of it in that negative connotation where it's like somebody's always watching you. And you can take that someone's always watching you, I guess, as a negative, or you can take it as a positive, because especially when we have kids, I guess someone is always watching you. I've spoken about it on the podcast like previous weeks, where it's like they're not going to, your actions are going to speak louder than words. And when it comes to parenting, like, one of the things is going to be, I don't personally believe that you can always take that do as I say, not as I do approach, because the kids are going to reflect your actions rather than reflect what you're saying them. And if what you're telling them is contradictory to what you're doing, it's going to create this turmoil for them and this misunderstanding around whatever it is we're going to try and teach them. So I guess from the point of view of being a parent, there is always someone watching. And as we know, especially those of us with older kids, they will see things and they will notice things that I don't think you'll even notice in yourself. They're a mirror for sometimes our deepest insecurities, and sometimes our greatest triumphs about ourselves too. Some of the things and some of the successes that they may have may be a mirror of what we're doing and what we're trying to teach them. But I do believe that in a big way, that we need to understand that our actions are going to be the things that are potentially going to hold with our kids for later on in life. So from that point of view, yes, there is always somebody watching, but for me, that's inspiring. It gives me motivation to do things on a daily basis. It gives me accountability, knowing that if I keep doing this work, that while right now I may not be getting, the flowers and the accolades for, at some point it's going to pay off. It's a cumulative effect, and it's going to compound over time. And that doesn't mean, what it means for me personally, is it just helps me stay on task, and it helps me stay on task for the long term, because it is very easy in today's day and age, where we have all this information coming at us so quickly, to jump around from thing to thing and not actually give stuff a real go. And if we can keep stacking those wins, if we can keep chipping away at those little things, and we can keep doing that work in the dark, eventually it's going to come to the light, whether that be around training and the result within training that you're working for, whether it be within business and the business that you're trying to build and you're trying to build up and you're trying to get to a particular point. And it doesn't even mean, for me, when I say comes to the light, it doesn't even mean things going viral or being well known all over the world. It just means being able to build success. If I understand, and this is probably part two to this, for me, when I look at that, if I understand what the end goal is and I understand what I'm trying to achieve, then that's my definition of coming to the light, right? Because then when I have my end goal, I can reverse engineer that, and I can start to build it out to the point where I've got daily, I've got weekly, I've got monthly, I've got yearly steps that I need to take. And that's my work in the dark. And that's what I'm doing in the dark, so that I can get to that end goal, which is what's going to come to the light. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to blow up and I'm going to go viral. It means that I'm working towards that end result. And that's where I'm working towards. And the things that I am doing in the dark in order to build, in order to continue to grow, in order to continue to try and excel as a husband, as a father, as a coach, just as a human being. And it's always this constant evolution. Those end goals are going to change. The goalposts are going to feel like they're going to move. And as a result, sometimes those actions that you are going to need to take, the work that you're going to need to do by yourself in the dark while nobody's watching, is going to have to change. And I've just gone on for quite a while around that particular saying, because it's really been something that I just wanted to get on the microphone and I guess brain dump some of my thoughts around it, because it's a saying. And I think it's also, it's not just a saying, but it's a concept and it's a philosophy that you can either use to spark motivation within yourself or spark fear within yourself. And I think if you're coming from a place of, I'm going to use this as a positive light, rather than I'm constantly looking over my shoulder to see if somebody's checking up on me, then it can help you take action when sometimes it seems hard and you're not motivated to take action. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I've taken away from that. And I also think when we're more likely to do something if we're coming at it from a place of joy and a place of happiness, which is inspiration and motivation, rather than a place of fear. Because coming at things like this from a place of fear can stem from a few different things. But I believe if it's coming from a place of fear, you're going to be less likely to take action on it. And it's going to create these other feelings around whatever it is you're working towards. But if you are looking at it from a place of fear and if that's what it sparks in your mind, this is just a thought that I'm having as I'm doing this podcast right now. Maybe it's potentially that you're not holding up to your word. So whatever it is that you're looking to do, the reason it's like this saying or the concept of this saying maybe scares you is because maybe you know deep down you're not doing what you need to in order to move the needle forward. And you can take it on that side of the coin as well too, where when you're not doing the work, the fact that you're not doing the work, while it may not come to the light, you'll never get to the light. You'll never get to that end goal because you have to do some work to get there. It's not magically going to happen. And for me, reflecting on that saying as I was reading, I was going on one of my walks in the morning, listening to my audiobook, which is a little bit of a ritual for me on the mornings that I can do it. And it came out, and since then, this was Monday morning, I think, I've really had, I've been reflecting pretty hard on it because I've heard this quite, it's something that it's a reoccurring theme for me that keeps coming up, especially over the last couple of years where there feels like there hasn't been a whole lot of success. Things have been good. Family's great. Everything's going, everything really is going well, but we've had a couple of roadblocks, as you would know if you've listened to this for a while. So I keep reaffirming to myself that if I keep taking positive action, eventually we're going to be able to have a big win. So it's what I'm doing in the dark while nobody's watching can come to the light. And in today's society, when everyone is so ready to share everything, just understand that there's going to be things that you are going to need to do that you don't need to share with anybody. And it's that work that you are going to do by yourself that is probably going to be that you're not going to share with anybody. That is probably going to be the stuff that is going to pay the biggest dividends for you in the long term. That is going to be the stuff that is going to help you get to whatever your big overarching goal is at the moment. And if you do feel like when you hear a saying like that, if you feel like you're going to be found out, if you feel like it inspires a little bit of fear in you, then potentially that just means that you're not actually taking the action that you need to in order to get to where you want to go. So that can be, so the one way you may want to look to shift that is start to work out what is that action that you need to do by yourself while no one's watching, and start to move the needle forward to help you out to get to the goal to get to whatever it is that you want to achieve, and to bring that hard work that you've been putting in over the last 10, 15 years to light, and become your own 10-year overnight success with whatever it is that you're working towards. So uh, that's the podcast. That's my thoughts. That's what I've been reflecting on a little bit over the last week, because in all reality, what we do or don't do in the dark does come to the light eventually, or it leads us to the light, or it leads us to a goal, because it is all about that cumulative effect. It's about that compound effect over time of just doing the little things and stacking those little wins. It's a concept that I cover off a lot within the programs that I do, within the coaching that I do, and something that I even need to reinforce to myself on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, especially when shit gets hard. You need to knuckle down. You need to do that work in the dark, because eventually it will come to the light. Life works in seasons and it will ebb and flow. But sometimes you just need to keep doing those things to build that success. And having sayings like that to remind us about keeping on to do the work, I think is a good thing. Some people will trash like motivational quotes and things like that, but for me, this is something that's been coming back up, this particular saying, over the last 6 months. So if it helps, let me know. If it's something that you've been struggling with, like, let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know if it triggers something in you, positive or negative. Maybe it's a negative thing. Send me a message. Let me know what you think. If you'd like to book in for a chat, I'm currently offering free 30-minute assessments, so they can be movement assessments for training programs. Or if you're struggling and you want to just have a chat, you can reach out. There's a link to book in the show notes as well. So thanks again for joining us for another week. Hope you got some value out of it. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.